Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a new one from In This Moment. It's been a while since I've heard anything from them. I listened to their Blood album fairly extensively. I think that's what it was called, Blood. And I don't think I've listened to much since. So it's interesting to see what they're doing these days. The new track just came out a couple days ago. This one's called The Purge. Let's see what's going on.
Pushing like pudding, like butter, like gold. You wanna get the cash, you wanna get the food. You wanna find the fake, you wanna be seen. You wanna blame an addict, but you're already a fiend. Fuck it, the whole world is gonna see high off flume.
Interesting trap-inspired percussion for our intro. Strong control of the rises and falls. Really interesting direction to take it, given all of the peaks that we had. There's a lot of unresolved tension that this chorus isn't really leaning into. Oh, that upbend. I'm kind of digging the fry layered with the cleans. Such a bizarre way to get to go into the chorus. Maybe it'll just take a couple listens, but okay. $24 harsh. It's interesting how much momentum it feels like it has, despite everything just really leaning back. It's fascinating. Yeah, that's the end of that. All right. Um, I think it's a fine song. I think it's a solid single. It does what it does fairly well, which primarily leans into atmosphere. As far as the instrumentation goes, the guitars, the bass, they are exceptionally one note. Both in the idea of the phrase, meaning they only do one thing, but also a lot of the times they're just playing one note. The chorus sees a little bit of pitch variety, but it really isn't that much. The song sits in its lane as far as the core metal instrumentation goes, and it never deviates from that. In fact, in our verse, our 4 bar phrase that we look at, 3 bars, it really takes the idea of pedal note that metal really loves. This goes even back to heavy metal, where you would get 3 bars or even 3 beats on more condensed ideas of pedal tone, usually eighth notes or some sort of rhythmic idea on an open chord, usually, and then a little punctuating idea in the last quarter of the phrase. This takes it to the next level, though, where we only get 2 or 3 notes in our first 3 bars, and they're all just this one pedal note. There's not even a rhythmic component to it that draws any attention from the vocals, which are really the main aspect of the entire song, but most definitely in the verse. I think it's also interesting to note that the first half of each of our verses, maybe it was only the first quarter, now that I think about it, is this very trap inspired rhythmic idea. I don't even know if the drummer is playing this concept. I think it is the equivalent of a bass kick and the hi hat. The hi hat sounds like it would come from the kit. I'm not too sure about the bass kick though. It could be digital. But yeah, very trap inspired, which goes with the sort of rhythmic focus in the vocals as well, kind of giving them a bit of a spoken word or a rapped element to them. The pitch doesn't matter. In fact, on our first verse, we don't even hear a pitch for a while. It's all just fry vocals, just really down here and getting that popcorn sound going on. Our second verse brings in a layered vocal set that if I remember it was panned off to the right. And provides pitches to all of it. It's really nice layering there. We'll touch on that in a second. But yeah, so we just have like hi hat and bass kick and then rhythmic fry vocals. It's an interesting way to start off a track for a band that I kind of associate as pop metal. Definitely metalcore with very high production values, or at least that was where they were at last time. I left off with them. So, like I said, it's interesting to come into this and kind of hear this trap element that kind of permeates through most of the opening 30 seconds or so of the track. When we get into the verse, though, sorry, when we get into the chorus, the band comes in full. The guitars play a couple of extra notes. There's some moving lines to it, but once again, it's a lot of staying in one lane for 75% of the phrase and then having a little embellishing concept at the end. The vocals are what take all the attention in the chorus as well. They have a melodic element to them. There's lots of production on them. There's layers. It is definitely ear catching. The drums, I would say, are second as far as what's being having the listener's attention drawn to them, and that's primarily because of the drum fills. Aside from the fills, the drums and the guitars are actually fairly laid back, playing exceptionally sparse for the type of drive and energy that the chorus has. I'm still fascinated by this because I don't quite understand how it works. If I were to write this down on paper, it would feel rather laid back. It would feel like it doesn't have much momentum, but in practice, and it probably comes from the timbre of the instruments, the tones that the guitarists are using, the production on the drums, and probably the production on the entire thing, especially when you bring in the vocals into the mix. It feels like it's pushing forward in a way that the music doesn't quite lean into, and I think that's awesome. Again, I don't know how it happens. There is a strong sense of groove throughout all of this, though. And that's our verse chorus. We just go back and forth on that. I don't want to hit the bridge yet because my understanding of the bridge comes from my understanding of dynamic control. I mentioned this during the reaction. The verse has this really awesome ebb and flow to it where it'll start out a bit quiet, build up into an energy, and then just flatline that energy again and bring it back down to the base zero and bring it back up and just immediately drop back down to zero. And it's just 100% having control over the listener's experience with this track, pulling them along for the ride, as bumpy as it is. It's not a smooth ride. You get tense, you get anxious, and they don't resolve it, but they bring you back down to the basic zero level of tension so they can build you up again. And what's fascinating about this is that moving into the chorus, the guitars kind of lean into this explosive energy that all this built up tension wants to move towards. It wants to disperse in a way, and the guitars kind of do that, but the guitars don't bring us into the chorus. We have 2 beats, I believe, of just the vocals as airy and um, small as, like, I don't want to call them small vocals because there's a lot of layers there. It's a big part of the track. It's a big part of the mix, but it's this light, airy head voice. It doesn't have the impact that the verse is leaning into. So it almost feels like that buildup coming off of the end of the verse just kind of gets dispersed. It doesn't get applied in any meaningful way. And I think that this lack of resolution is key to the track. We do it so often that it can't be a mistake. It can't be an accident. Oh, how did that happen? It feels so intentional, is what I'm getting at there. I don't know why. Maybe the lyrics will lean into that, but this feeling of what is it? Disappointment, maybe, is key to this track. I felt it so many times where they allude to one thing and then just don't deliver on it. Or they deliver on it in a delayed manner that feels like it's a slap in the face. And so we get another build up in our bridge. And it is a full, what was it, 8 bar? I think it was an 8 bar build up. We had rising tension. We added more and more layers to it. The guitars got meatier and wider with their sounds. Volume was rising, like everything pointed towards up. And then we do hit an impactful climax of the track with the new guitar riff coming in here that drives the song forward, the drums that continue to push momentum, and of course the vocal scream coming out, just sitting on top of this. I think I counted it to like 32 bars of just holding this pitch out. Um, yeah, this is a real explosive part, and it's what I think the verse or the choruses should have been like if they were aiming to have any sort of resolution in them. And I think once again the disappointment in those choruses is supposed to be felt. So when we get here, we have this I don't know, layered release. We've been waiting for this for so long that it feels so good to finally get here. But it doesn't go anywhere. The song just sort of quits after this scream. We get a little bit of ambience for a bar, and then we're back into the chorus, and it just does not flow at all. It's sort of typical for my complaints, my criticisms with a lot of mainstream music is flow. Um, a lot of bridges feel out of place in mainstream music, and so I don't know if it's necessarily a problem with this track. I don't know if I can even call it a problem. I'm sure if I look in the comments here, everybody's going to talk about how song is a masterpiece. It's their favorite song they've heard. They're glad the band's back doing something. I don't know. I'm kind of glancing through and I see a lot of positivity in these comments. It's not a problem, not an objective one. Anyways, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it feels just very strange for me to come out of all that energy and then just come back into that chorus that doesn't have any impact to it. Like I said, it works for a lot of people. Maybe I'm the odd man out on this one. Um, but yeah, we finally get this release, and then there's this lackluster move into the return to the chorus, which again, a disappointment sets in. Honestly, if they had gone with the ABABC pattern that a lot of bands are doing these days and not returned to a third chorus, I really think that would have been a much better way to end the track than what they did. Instead, they landed on something that's a bit more cookie cutter. Well, the ABABC is fairly cookie cutter these days too, and cookie cutter is a weird term too. Iterative. They landed on a more iterative structure that I don't think did them any benefits, but it lengthened the song out a little bit for them, which probably helps some metrics somewhere. I don't know. Um, I do want to say though, Maria is the highlight of the band in this track, and I really enjoy a lot of the vocal variety here, whether it is the screams or the fries or uh, the airy head voice that we get in the chorus, or even the minor fluctuations we get in the second verse as she takes that fry crackle that she has and pushes it into more of a fry scream and backs it back down, and really getting all the nuance between those two. I thought that was a really inspired aspect of the vocal work that we heard there in the second verse, and yeah, I wanted to give a little spotlight to that because we could have just went through with the fry crackle like we had in the first verse, and instead we got these little nuanced variations on it, and I enjoyed that. I'm going to take a moment to hit the lyrics, and we'll wrap this up. All right. According to Maria Brink, the lead singer, says the underlying message of the song is to not fall too deeply into the rabbit hole. Everything's about finding balance. I had a lot of emotions building within me when I approached the song for the first time, and after years of holding it all in, I finally got to let it out. And I think the chorus leans into this just fine. It's a series of maybes. Maybe we'll all burn, maybe we'll purge, maybe we'll die, maybe you were right, maybe we're just parasites. This idea that anybody could be right about anything. Um, yeah, okay, maybe. Like I said, that part I suppose does work within this idea of finding something in the middle, not looking towards the extremes. But oh, that is not a great chorus to lean into that. And honestly, it's the only part of the song that I feel really exemplifies the themes that she was trying to explore lyrically. The verses just talk about how people are trying to. I think it's supposed to be showing how both sides are the same in any argument. As long as you ignore the extremes, you can find something. She says people are pushing like pudding, like butter, like gold, trying to find the cash, and they want to get the fool. Says you want to find a fake, you want to be seen, you want to blame an addict, but you're already a fiend. Um, the idea of always trying to get the other, right? Trying to find the fake on the other side, or you're trying to be seen on your side, stuff like that. But all in all, it feels a bit vapid, especially when paired against the theme she's attempting to explore. It kind of feels like empty words, syllables to fill space. Verse 2 leans into more of this. Says you want to get the girl, you want to win the fight, you want to be a god, you want to be a star, you want to blame someone else, and this time you went too far. And I think that line is really interesting because it could be taken as just as vague as anything else, but I think it's interesting to put this into perspective with the guitarist Chris Howarth, who mentioned that this was a song that came from their time in lockdown. And so it's difficult then to read any of this outside of that context. Maybe the lyrics didn't come through there, and if Maria wants to clear that up, fantastic. But according to Chris, they wrote the song during lockdown. Maria's musical ideas came through with it as. Oh, I misread that. I don't want to misrepresent the situation. It says, during lockdown, I sent Maria the musical ideas I was working on, and this one resonated with her, and she said it's going to be our first single. Fast forward a couple years, and all the pent up frustration and angst came pouring out of Maria's lyrics and performance. So it seems that musically and lyrically, this song is about their experience with the lockdown, the pandemic, COVID 2020. And so we have the lyrics, you want to blame another, and this time you went too far. And like I said, it's difficult for me not to read into that. We do have a pre chorus, which is kind of the chorus because it's the same thing both times around. There's no new lyrics to it and there's no new music to it, which is sort of just chorusy there. It says, the whole world's gone mad, high off smoke and addicted to the fad. Why am I here? I don't really know. Another in the bag and another Jane Doe. Sort of just speaking about not understanding anything going on around them. Just seeing people following fads. It says you push back and forth and back. You said you were, and you said that you were free. Now you're locked in a cage. You're pushing lies like your life is on the line. You want a reason why. Now you're begging for a sign. And it's the same problem I had. I don't remember what the other track was where this topic came up, but my opinion on lyrics is that you don't want to be misconstrued. And I can see these lyrics working for both sides of the argument during the COVID lockdowns. And if your lyrics are vague enough that two opposing ideologies and opinions and perspectives can both read into your lyrics and find support, then you haven't said anything. Everything in there is vapid. If you don't want to be misconstrued, you need to be very plain and clear about what you're saying, but I also understand the dangers of being political in a mainstream band like this. So I honestly wonder what what the point of making the song was in the first place. If it was just to get some frustration out, do that and don't put the lyrics with it. But as I mentioned with the verses, they seem kind of empty, and paired with the themes that they were exploring when they created the track, the song doesn't really seem to know what it is. And paired with the visuals that were on display in the music video, I didn't really get any of this out of that either. So, this is an interesting concept right here, in that I don't think the song itself is bad. In fact, I enjoyed myself with a lot of it, just jamming along with the music of it. But once I start digging into why it was made and what it's trying to say, I'm kind of walking away from it bummed out. I don't really want to give it another listen. So, is that just me though? Let me know down in the comments section what your opinions and perspectives and thoughts are on this track. Did you enjoy it? Do you have a completely different take on the lyrics? Do you not care about the lyrics and you just love what the instruments are doing? You just jam along with it. Like, that's fine. Let me know though. Above that, in the description box, you're going to find a link to Linktree. It's going to take you to this menu right here. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.